What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Real Reds Talk, an authentic football fan channel made in Manchester. And we have a cracking show for you lot today. We're going to be discussing the outgoings at Manchester United, or the lack of outgoings, one may say, as we are struggling to move on players. And this has been an issue probably for the past decade, one might say. So, yeah, we're going to discuss that in depth, why we have these issues, why it's been a long-term problem, what we can do to solve it. We're also going to talk about Fulham cooling their interest in Scott Mctominay, which also could hinder further potential deals that we want to do in the market. And we've had some updates on Yusuf Fofana as well in terms of that deal getting a little bit more advanced, being reported by credible people now in Sky Sports News, etc. So, a lot of it's all around outgoings and the midfield situation. So, as always, guys, you know the crack. Get your opinions in the comments, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this later on. Of course, I've got my daily co-host alongside me, Mr. Shreyas Singh, in a different setting today. He's moving about. How are we?
Yeah, doing fairly well. Got some time off today, and yeah, like you mentioned, just moving around the entire house. I'm not going to leave any angle from where I
Yeah,
can do it.
yeah.
So yeah,
Just hopefully you don't do it in the
every
toilet.
every single time we do a signing, I'm gonna shift my background completely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, as long as it's not in the toilet and I'm all right, you can do it in the back room, front room, bed, wherever you want. Just, yeah, with these boundaries, you know what I mean? So let's just dive straight into it, Shreyas, because this has been something that we've actually been discussing in the chat quite a lot. Why are we struggling so much? And it's also a lot of people in the chat as well, in the YouTube chat, in the community, have been saying, what is the issue? Why do we know, like, the little small details, but we're going to delve into the further ones and really kind of unpack this. So, obviously, since Sir Alex Ferguson's retirement in 2013, as we know, the club went through multiple periods of managerial instabilities, which then kind of led to inconsistent transfer policies, lack of long-term planning, and that was happening year in, year out, and you end up with an absolute shit show. You also have the pressure to compete. You got the rise of Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, and you'd argue there was pressure because of how much we fucked up the multiple managerial candidates. There was pressure to just get that player in and sign him, even as recent as Casemiro and Antony, right? We've seen these kind of issues. So let's just start off on the basis of the reason or why it's been allowed to go on for so long is shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is, because once again, uh, I've seen only one good season of Manchester United where we've lifted the Premier League, like just one that I've actually seen.
And
After that,
how old was you when that happened? 13? Was you?
no, I think I was 11.
Mm, wow.
10 or 11 years old I
Yeah.
was. It was the
Crazy.
final season of Sir Alex, because I remember, when he walked out and he announced that he's going to
Yeah.
be leaving. That's the first memory I've actually had. The first full season I've actually been able to see. We lifted the title, and after that it's just been a complete landslide. Um, from actually seeing it from an outside perspective, signings definitely have been haywire. The kind of people we went after, the kind of players we went after, how long those deals dragged out, then how much we actually ended up paying for that player, and then how much we actually ended up offering as wages to the player. All of those sides were very, very terrible from United. Apart from that as well, the managers we went after, they weren't fully backed. Managers never really got the players that they actually wanted. They always got players who United thought would fit into the PR, would fit into the media, would sell more merchandise, would bring in more funds from a shirt selling perspective, and that's the sort of players we actually went after. And even we've seen that throughout the years, the kind of players we actually being linked to, we've been linked to players like Thiago, players like Tony Cruz. There have been millions of players that we've been actually been linked to. Managers just never got them.
Mm-hmm.
We advanced to actually signing those sort of players, those sort of figures into the team. We just never really managed to actually back the manager fully. And then at the end of the day, before deadline day, we made a panic signing, and that person, whoever we used to sign, he used to be like the shiny player who people would expect a lot from. People would
Yep.
expect that this guy is going to come in and just completely revolutionize the way we play, and we're just going to be gunning for the Premier League title. But it never happened. I think before Sir Alex, this team, I wouldn't say was a complete all-star team, but this team had match, like out of 11 players, 9 to 10 of them were match winners. Like
Yeah.
themselves, if they had a good game, they could just run away with the game itself. And that's the sort of team that I've actually, been seeing for quite some time under Sir Alex. After Sir Alex left, I could hardly, like, in this team right now, I only see Bruno as the only one who I would say, that he's a match winner. Like, when he plays his best game, there's no team that can actually stop United. But
Yeah.
apart from Bruno, there's nobody consistent enough. There's nobody good enough, and I would even say, there's nobody at that level yet where I would go and say that, this is the guy I'm going to be banking on for an entire season. And if we are struggling in games, this guy's quality is actually going to be something that can just, help us graft a win out. I haven't seen that team ever since Sir Alex actually left, and the kind of managers that we went for as well. David Moyes never really worked out and was never really convinced by him either. After that, we got in Louis Van Gaal. Once again, a very big figure, has won a lot of trophies, had a very good CV, got in, didn't really fit into the type of playing style that United are known for. Never really fit into the type of DNA of Manchester United either, and ultimately didn't work out again. Then under Jose Mourinho, once again, shiny signings were made, shiny players were bought in, a lot of hope, a lot of expectations as well that we're going to get back to that level once again. But like even Jose Mourinho has said it a million times that his biggest ever achievement as a manager has been coming second in the Premier League with Manchester United. So it just goes on to show that a manager who's won Champions League titles with teams like Porto, has won trebles with teams like Inter Milan, Premier League titles with Chelsea, and his biggest achievement, he still says to this, this date is coming second with Manchester United.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, you can just see how badly the club has been run.
This is one of the biggest ones for me. I mean, there's multiple things that we're going to dive into, but this is one of the biggest ones, and we can really go in depth on this. Like you said, we've had frequent change in managers. That then leads to scattergun approaches in the market, and what you actually end up with is a list of players compiled from different managers. So it's almost impossible to imprint your identity, which Erik ten Hag is currently struggling with at the moment. You look at Klopp's teams when he was there, obviously he's left now. You look at Pep Guardiola's, every single one of them players are their signings, aren't they? So
Exactly.
they personally wanted them players to systematically fit, and that's what Ten Hag's trying to do now, because it takes years and years and years and years to move these kind of players on. Like, even look at the situation with Wan-Bissaka, for example. Paid £50 million for him. He's an Ollie player. Ollie used to love to sit back and we'd counter-attack. Soak up the pressure and counter-attack. We're trying to be proactive, go the opposite way now, and you've got Wan-Bissaka. And because how much we paid for him, how much wages we give him as well, he's an Ollie player. So we're struggling to sell him at the moment, aren't we?
Oh, we definitely are. Because once again, you look into this team, I would just say it in this sense. How many of these players actually start for big teams around Europe?
Yeah, they don't.
Van Dijk doesn't start for any big team around Europe.
No.
Harry Maguire doesn't start for any big team around Europe. Neither does Lindelof. Neither does Malacia. So that's your entire. Barring Lisandro Martinez right now, there is no one I actually see that can walk into any team and actually make them better. When you look into the midfield, Casemiro is not that person anymore. Has had an incredible career. Is one of the I would say best CDMs of this generation, but he's not at that level now.
Yeah.
Apart from that, then you look into Kobe Mino, is still a budding superstar. There is still a lot of development left in his game, and he has a very very high ceiling, but he's not there yet.
Yeah.
That just leaves with with Bruno. In the attack as well, there's no player in that team right now who starts for any team in Europe. Bruno is the only one in this team who I will say, you put him in Madrid, you put him in any single team you want to, and he elevates the level of that team.
But I would argue as well, because of our commercial success, they at the time, Richard Arnold, Ed Woodward, all these guys didn't think at the time. They was just like, oh, well, we're making enough money so we can offer these players more. And also because we'd been doing relatively, poor in the league at times, it was like the only thing we can offer them is more money. So
Exactly.
It's like, oh, do you want to go to Real Madrid, who can give you this? Or do you want to go to Man City, who are winning this? Or do you want to come to us, where we're going to offer you an extra £100,000 a week? You're going to get an extra 100 million followers, etc., etc. And that's kind of the package, again, that he was offering to try and entice him, innit?
Yeah. And, you could see that in the, players' body language as well on the pitch. Like, yeah. I remember the season where we finished second in the Prem under Oli. And there were only a few characters who I would say that, were actually quite bummed about it that we finished second. They wanted to lift the trophy. They wanted to come first. a lot of these players, in that 11, they were satisfied by coming second. They were satisfied by just coming in, as a runner-up in the Europa League final as well. This team and the players that were in it, uh, they just never really, and like under Sir Alex, I could see players that even when we used to draw games, there used to be a big showdown that we've not won the game, and they used to treat draws as losses.
Yeah.
This team just gets satisfied. This team just gets happy too easily, and I think that's a big letdown as well. Because if you look into other teams as well, Manchester City right now, when they lose a game or when they draw a game, or I would say if there is a season where they don't lift the Premier League title, and if they finish second, or even when they win, Carabao Cups or FA Cups, they still treat that season as a failure. We are not in that category or in that zone. At least for quite some time, we haven't been in that zone where we would treat our season as success or failures on the basis of that.
Well, it's also a thing to consider is the type of character that you're attracting, because if you're offering higher wages
Yeah,
and they come for that purpose alone, is that a kind of player that you want to bring in? So it's like, oh, Alexis Sanchez, let's say, for example, not to say we're a hard-working player or whatever it was, but it's like he's kind of convinced by the £500,000 a week. So it's like, okay, he's coming for that. When shit goes tits up, it's so hard to move him on, because no team is paying anywhere near that, probably not even half of that, for like a 29, 30-year-old Alexis Sanchez. So it comes back again to poor recruitment and the strategy that the club have tried to sign, like several high-profile signings that have just completely failed to deliver. And then that reflects on their scouting and evaluation process, and people start doubting that. And then there was a whole kind of back and forth with that one. They're saying there were scouts recommending players, and then there was ignoring it. So one question I wanted to ask on this, just because it's in relation to it, who is the worst signing in your opinion?
Since Sir Alex, the worst.
Or give us your top three.
Oh, top three. Anthony, definitely on top. Apart from that,
Difficult, isn't it? Because we made so many bad ones, so it's like.
oh yeah, there have been a lot of bad ones. Di Maria comes into my mind as well. The Schneiderlin comes into my mind as well.
Well, with Schneiderlin, it was low cost, wasn't it? It was 24 million, so it's not the end of the world. Whereas Toney is quadruple that.
Just can't stand him on the pitch. Alexis Sanchez was a very big letdown as well, considering the sort of expectations that he was brought in with.
Yeah, that broke the structure as well, didn't it? The wage structure, 500,000.
Yeah.
People at the club who've been there for years are looking at it going, hold on a minute, how the fuck is he on £500,000 a week? That is crazy. And then we still loaned him, I think, to Inter Milan, didn't we? And was paying half his wages when he was there.
Yeah.
Mad. Utter madness.
Yeah. Antony is definitely there. Sanchez could definitely be there. Di Maria could definitely be there as well. Apart from that, Maguire, I would say prior to last season, I would have put him there. But last season he was absolutely good and solid. Whenever we actually wanted him, he was quite decent. I would say he's redefined his image at United quite a lot.
Sancho?
But Sancho could.
He'd have to be in consideration because he's not really done much for United. £72 million.
Sancho's in that category too. Sancho's definitely in that category too. But Antony is higher.
Yeah. Antony may end up going down as the worst signing in Premier League history.
Ever.
I think there's definitely a shout for that when you discuss it. Look, there's other ones that you can throw in there. But for what Antony's done, for close to £100 million, one goal against Newport, it doesn't get much worse than that. You can bring up any player or any stats comparisons that you want. Like, we watch United, and the guys in the chat and women watch United week in, week out, and we know how one-dimensional he is and how bad he is at times. And the ego that he's got for the player that he is just does not match up whatsoever. So I would agree with that. Now we're gonna move on to kind of the role of the agents and player power, because that's another dynamic, I think, which is kind of all folded into one. But I'm gonna read out some chats because I don't want to ignore people. Right. So many chats. Love everyone. I can't even speak. Love to see everyone in here. Thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you smash a like on the video if you can. Also, let us know about audio as well. Is the audio okay? Is all the feedback good? Because I've just put a mixer in. So, yeah, if there's any feedback issues or if you're hearing an echo, just let me know and I'll sort it out, because I don't want you guys to be hearing that kind of stuff. So many. Right, where do we go to first? Alex, hello, just came across this channel. Really fun videos. Thank you very much, Alex. I'm glad you appreciate it. Welcome to the Real Reds community. We're live twice a day, so hopefully we enjoy them shows. Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, Richard. Sophie in the chat saying hello. Is that a sporting kit?
Yep.
It is.
Sporting
Oh,
list.
shit, I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice myself. Yeah, it is a sporting kit, innit? Fair play to you. D Brown, good afternoon, lads. Good afternoon to you, D Brown. Mark Palmer, Berg seems like a bad signing for us. Yep, I spoke about that in a show I did the other day. It's, yeah, you're going from Margot Robbie to Fizz from Curry, basically. Sean, I was manscaping earlier and thought to myself, why do Americans refer to your tackle as pork? When in fact, it resembles a baby chicken. Sean, can always rely on you for those kind of comments. Thank you, mate. We will, Jolly Mom saying we will sell Polistri and Hannibal this summer. The rest will be staying. I don't even know if we're going to sell them. YJJ, Ineos thought we could sell players who are not compatible with progressive modern football. I plucked and ready to cook baby chicken, that is. It's so random. Oh my God, there's so many comments. We've had managers since Sir Alex has gone, and we've had these so good managers, but haven't been able to do it. It's been a mess spending loads of money on players who aren't good enough. Okay, I hear what you were both saying. You want me to dust my boots off and put them back on again? Okay, I'll do it for the team. Yes, Richard, if you can, get yourself back in there. I'll go back to the comments in a moment. The role of agents, Shreyas, and player power, etc. You look at someone like Paul Pogba, for example, with Mina Raiola. Do you remember that against Leipzig a couple of days before, the demands and stuff?
Yes.
So this as well, player power and agents has been a huge issue. And just whilst you discuss that, I'm just going to quickly change my camera over. So it'll be 2 seconds.
Sure. I mean, I still remember it. It was in the Champions League game against Leipzig. It was do or die for us. Like if we ended up losing the game, we go down to the Europa League. And just before that game, I think it was the international break where Pogba's agent Mino Raiola came out quite strongly about Pogba's future. And every single time, I think at that point in Pogba's career, every single time that there used to be an international break, certain comment or certain things used to come out that didn't really lean into his future at United actually being positive. And just before that game, then I think he was benched in that game. Toney started over him, and we ended up losing the game. He was brought out for the last 20 or 10 minutes, and it just never really fit right. Ever since those comments came out, there was always a big microscope on Paul Pogba, whether he played well, whether he played bad, and I think any player with that sort of magnification, especially while you're playing at Manchester United, you're not going to have it easy. And every single time, even if he had a good performance, it used to not get praised as highly. And if he had a bad performance, people used to just completely go at him. And after a point, it became very toxic. It became a big divide within the Manchester United fan base as well. And that's why he left on the terms that he did when he left Manchester United. And it's not just Paul Pogba. I think it was under Oli or Ragnick that this thing came out that players have it in their contracts that they have to play a certain amount of games and they cannot be benched. When it came out about Maguire, when it came out about Bruno, and people actually started to believe it because these players were never benched and they were having horrible seasons. So, and even we could see it from as fans that these players are actually the ones who are dictating the locker room, and it's not the manager. Players are doing whatever they want on the pitch. It's not the manager that is actually conducting them on the pitch. I would say at least under Ten Hag, that has changed a bit. I can at least see that players are following a directive under the manager, but under Oli and especially under Rangnick, I could never see it on the pitch.
Yeah, I think Sean makes a great point as well. Moyes clearing out most of Fergie's backroom staff didn't help us going forward either. Yeah, I understand the man wanting his own people in, but when you have such like a legacy like Fergie did, changing it that dramatically, in my opinion, was such an incorrect decision. And I remember Rio talking about this, saying that David Moyes was showing him clips of Phil Jagielka how to defend. And Rio sat there like, come on, mate, I've won a Champions League. Like, I've, won Premier Leagues. Why are you showing me Phil Jagielka at Everton, how he's defending? So I think the transitional period, I would have preferred us, I don't know if you agree with this, Shreyas, I would have preferred us maybe to go to Mourinho straight away, to keep that win, straight after Fergie, to keep that winning kind of element. But I can't remember where Mourinho was when Fergie left, because he was at Inter, obviously, in 2010.
I think it was Madrid. I think it was in Madrid. I think it was.
It was that so yeah, it's a completely different situation, mate. He might not have been available, but I think they needed to go to that caliber of manager straight after Because ever since then, it's just been, how can you go from David
Yeah,
Moyes to Louis van Gaal
exactly,
to Mourinho to Ole? Like, it's
exactly.
such different managers, isn't it?
For me, when Sir Alex left, there were only two choices that I would have loved to see. One was definitely Mourinho, because I thought that he's someone who can actually match the stature of Manchester United. He knows how to manage a big club and how to manage the personalities in that club as well.
Yeah,
And apart from that, one person I've always wanted at United was Carlo Ancelotti. I think he's someone who just knows how to get the best out of big egos, being in the same setup, and
yeah,
actually being able to play fantastic football at the same time, while actually developing young players, while actually maintaining a good partnership. The kind of partnership he went with when it had Benzema, Bale, and Cristiano. It's very tough to handle, and he's doing it even right now with the kind of he's
I
going to
was just
going
about to
to be
say
doing it
that.
now. Yeah,
You
with
look at the
Vinny,
egos
Rodrigo.
that he's
Yeah,
handling at the
Vinny,
minute.
Rodrigo.
My
You've got
God.
Mbappe, Jude Bellingham there as well.
Yeah.
So he's got that same setup once again at Madrid.
Yeah. Brian Casey chiming in with his worst three signings. Brian Casey saying Sanchez, Di Maria, and Antony as the
Yeah,
top three. Alex is saying Sanchez, Di Maria. Sanchez not even close. Sanchez, Di Maria, and Fellaini. Says Charlie Malman. Antony versus Mudryk, last man standing, says Sean. They're both up there. I mean, Chelsea can definitely compete with us with some of the worst signings that they've made and the money that they've spent. I mean, they spent, what's happened to Lavia? How much did he spend on Lavia? 55 million, was it? To kind of steal him
on
from
Lavia.
Liverpool. Has he even
Easily
played for him?
10 minutes.
Has he played 10 minutes for him? That is
Then he got
crazy.
injured again.
Oh my God. And then obviously in Nkunku they paid
Yeah,
60 million for, and he's been injured.
yeah.
Yeah, they've had as much as a nightmare, if not more than us, which I didn't
I
even
think
think was fucking possible.
Mudryk had like 8 or 7 career goals when they ended
Oh,
up paying 100 million for him.
wow. That is mad. The money that gets splashed nowadays. Mira's saying Anthony's so irritating on the pitch, can't stand him. We'll take a loss on him and sell him. Well, we said, me and Sam did a show last night and we were discussing Anthony because he got linked to Saudi. And the first thing we both said on this was, listen, this story's coming from Sports Pete. First and foremost, he's a transfer expert. But I was like, I will absolutely wait for someone else concrete to come out and discuss this. Otherwise, these links to Saudi with any of our players at the minute, I would just completely downplay them. The majority of the time,
Yeah.
it's bullshit. Someone's just looking for a story and clicks.
By the
and they've
looks
got
of it, nobody likes Anthony. Like,
Yeah,
just
no.
likes
Yeah, around the board. One thing I will say, though, is, look, I think he's very one-dimensional. And we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but it's fine because we're talking about Anthony. One, I think he is very one-dimensional. He does work very hard off the ball. He offers that at least. If he was to work on his game, I mean, I don't know why he doesn't try and use his right foot more. Even in Liverpool, he scored with his right foot.
Scored with his right foot.
You can do it. We've seen fucking evidence of that.
He chooses not to.
Yeah, he chooses not to, exactly. So I can see where he could potentially develop, but he's got to start switching his game up. He's got to stop just cutting in and having shots. And if he starts changing over, you make it more difficult for defenders then. But if you stick to that, defenders know what you're going to do. And that's the issue with him.
And he needs to work on his change of pace whenever he tries to dribble past a player.
Yeah.
Even when he's needed in a lot of games. I think it was a game against Bayern as well. He was able to nutmeg Kim Min-jae, had to just go around him and just make the final
And
ball
cut
through.
back.
He just never runs whenever he beats the defender. Never runs. He just sits, slows the game, slows the pace of the game down, waits for the defenders to come back, and then by that time the attack is just completely off.
Was it the Chelsea game where he sprinted past, was it Cucurella?
Yeah.
And he actually shown a burst of pace, didn't he? And we was like, oh my God. And then the outside of the foot cross was it as well, the assist. Yeah. And then you see that and you're like, right, okay, it was a fucking fantastic assist. That is much easier to cross on your right foot rather than doing that with outside, isn't it?
He went with a Trivela cross.
Yeah, that is Anthony in a fucking nutshell, honestly. McMillan, hello, all the lads and gents. How's it hanging? Very well, thank you very much. United are open to completing a deal. Oh, don't do this. Jesus Christ.
What?
You ready for this, Shreyas?
Okay.
United. This is from Charlie Malman. I think he's copy and pasted from a journalist on Twitter. United are open to completing a deal for De Jong if a fee around the 30-40 million mark can be agreed. But Michael Plant 82 and Mankworld UK do not sound like journalists I've ever heard of, honestly. So
it's never going to happen.
No. And we both know how much Frenkie de Jong, his wages that he's on. He's the highest paid player in La Liga.
I would go on to say, even if at a certain point in his career he becomes a free agent, United would still not be able to get.
Yeah, and although I think De Jong is, in my opinion, is better in Kobbie's position. He can play that 6, and he has done it for Barcelona before, and he's not bad at it. I don't think he's the 6 that we need, and I think we've moved on from him. Did you guys hear that the +1 in player contracts will only be activated if the club agrees to pay half of the transfer fee we get to the players' camp? Is there any truth in that? I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything on that personally. I don't know if you mean under Ineos or under the previous regime. You have to kind of clarify that.
Yeah, under the previous regime, I just remember that, when we sold Fred, I think to Fenerbahce, we got 10 million or something for him, but we could only get 5 million from the deal because of same reason that, he was in the final year of his contract, that +1 had to be activated, and if it didn't, 50% just went to the player.
Yeah. It's weird how many players we've got on, like with a year left in it. Like Wan-Bissaka has a year left, Victor Lindelof has a year left. Does Maguire have a year left as well? He runs out in 2025.
Yeah, 2025 or 26.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a couple more, maybe Eriksen or something as well. There's loads.
Yeah, Eriksen and Casemiro as well, both on the final year of their contracts.
Wow, crazy. Shrinde, I'm actually okay with Scooby-Doo being at United. We'll talk about McTominay very, very shortly. I'm sorry, there's loads of comments. Honestly, I'm trying to... Hey, it's breaking news. I did not believe it for a second, but it's still news. Correct, Jala. You're correct. Absolutely. Thank you for putting that in. Mick Miller says Shreyas wants to camouflage in Nick's wall. Nick's first decoration.
Yeah.
Nice. That is a very similar colour, isn't it, to be fair, to my background.
Yeah.
Please remember, guys, we also still own many clubs around 200 million. Wow.
What?
Yeah.
200?
That's probably correct, because the way we're doing deals at the minute, we are basically using the Klarna model, aren't we? So we're spreading payments out and doing that.
Surely.
But with the new signings, like Xerxes, for example, it's like 40 million. So it's, it's not an Anthony signing or a Pogba or a Maguire or Sancho or anything like that. So it's not too bad. And I'll read out the last few and then we'll go back to what we were just talking about. So Sam's putting some breaking news. United plan to keep Old Trafford, considering a scaled-down version next to a 2 billion arena, which would hold 30,000 fans and host women's and academy games. Fantastic news. Yeah, that's great news. I'm happy about that. I hope they do keep it. And yeah, I mean, Leeds Sports Village is all right, but I think they deserve, if they scale it down, that's absolutely fine. Now, back to what we was discussing, wages, etc. So we've had instances where the club have overestimated potential and marketability of certain players. This is another issue leading to inflated wage offers. So who can we put in this category? And I was going through a few before. So, for example, Alexis Sanchez, we've already discussed. £500,000 a week. He had 5 goals in 45 games for United. Di Maria, £280,000 a week he was on. And this was 2014. It's not 10 years ago when we signed Di Maria.
Exactly.
And £280,000 a week. Left within less a year, I think, didn't he? His house got burgled, struggled to adapt to the Prem, went straight to PSG. So that fucked up. Falcao, do you know how much he was on?
200, 210?
£265,000 a week. Falcao was on. And he scored 4 goals for United. And I believe there was a loan fee close to 10 million from Monaco as well that we paid for him. So that is a very expensive loan. Extremely expensive loan. Fred obviously paid £50 million for him. He was on £120,000 a week. Did okay. Did all right. Definitely didn't live up to the £50 million price tag, I'll tell you that for free. Mkhitaryan, 140k a week as well. Obviously that deal didn't really work out. So there's so many instances where you could just be looking at it and like, right, this player's worth this player's worth that. And I know a lot of people at the moment, if you bring it back to the modern day within Ineos, what they're doing, they're not overpaying for players and they're not going for the giant names. Like Ugarte, he's not a huge name. I wouldn't say he's not like a blockbuster Sancho signing. I'd suggest. I don't know if you agree with that. Xerxes, another one who's what's he on? 70k a week, 70k a week or something. I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, he doubled his wages from Bologna, but he was on 35, paid a small fee. Yoro, look, he's what you would call a generational talent, so you pay a little bit extra for that, but he's like 100,000, and if he replicates what we've seen in glimpses, then he's definitely going to be worth it. So you can already see the switching model, can't you, Shreyas?
Oh, of course, I think, and we genuinely needed it as well, because the kind of wages that we were offering these players was actually, making it difficult for us to offload them when the time came. And at least that, now these players are on I would say at least under that 150,000 grand a week mark. At least they're under that. it still makes it a bit easier to do deals. When you talk about Lenny Euro, once again, like you mentioned, completely different conversation. He's a completely different profile of a player. When you talk about Xerxes, once again, both Xerxes is an under the radar signing. Like if you rewind to last season, you would never expect United to go in for a striker like Joshua Xerxes in a transfer window, especially when you've already got Rasmus Højlund. This is the last kind of resort that United would actually go for, especially while fighting with AC Milan to actually get his signature. So I think our transfer policy has shifted drastically. The age profiles that we are working with has changed drastically as well, and at least we are working with players who fit the system.
Yeah.
Xerxes definitely fits the system. I think when Xerxes comes in, the wingers will have a better game. I think Bruno will actually have a better game linking up with him as well. When you look at Lenny Euro, he's very calm, very composed, is a dominator in the box, is able to soak and absorb pressure and distribute the ball quite well, when he's given enough time to. And he looked very very bright during preseason. I think whenever he does come back, I think he'll have a massive season this year for United. But I think these are the right sort of profiles that you're mentioning. And even when you say Ugarte is not a superstar signing. Ugarte is still very young. He's still making a name for himself right now. He's
23,
not.
isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
he's
mad.
just 23 exactly, and he's not that sort of a player where you would. He's not a Fede Valverde right now. He's not. He's
Yeah.
still working his way up. There is still a lot more to his game that needs to be developed, and he's just a young raw diamond, I would say. If he comes in at the right setup, if he is given the right moments and right coaching as well, he can become a very very special player.
Yeah.
But he's not at that level yet. So even the players that we are being linked to right now, and the players that are present at the club right now, barring a few, I think these are the right sort of profiles a club like United should be working at right now, because
Yeah.
these are the sort of players that you need at your team, considering how every other club actually works now.
It seems like they're going for players now between 30 and 50 million, and
Yeah.
they're on like 70 to 100k wages. That's what they're looking at. But long term, it's just much more effective when you're trying to sell a player, when you're extending contracts. Just longevity is far better, and younger players as well at that. They're not signing 29, 30-year-olds, Nemanja Matic, Alexis Sanchez on such high wages where by the end of the contract, you can't even get rid of him. And we're still having issues with that at the moment. So this is the reason why I'm saying it. Anyone who mentioned De Jong before, I've just quickly looked. He earns €721,000 a week at Barcelona. So anyone thinks we're signing him, not gonna fucking happen.
Not going to happen. Yeah.
I love De Jong. Anyone who knows this channel and was watching it for a while knows I absolutely love him. But it's just never ever gonna happen. And also we need outgoings.
Imagine if it happened actually under Moto and Richard Arnold. 700 grand a week.
It just wouldn't happen because I think Barcelona's still owing money as well. Look, if we can get
Around
a deal and
34
he's
million
like,
they still own.
I don't care, I want to join this project that Ineos have got and I want to take a wage cut, which is probably the most unlikely thing to ever happen, then I'd be willing to take him. Don't get me wrong, like Frenkie de Jong's a fucking unbelievable player. I've always been a huge fan of him. But his wages are he's crazy wages. And we're also struggling to buy certain targets at the moment, like de Ligt. We can't get de Ligt over the line because Bayern are asking for too much. We can't get Mazraoui over the line. We couldn't get Ugarte over the line. So if you think we're going to get De Jong over the line, then whatever you're smoking, effectively. Now, Shreyas, we're going to talk about Scott McTominay because in a minute, because we are discussing outgoings, and that is a topical thing, and we had some news break last night. Right, let's go to the comments again. Mir is asking, is Shreyas single? There you go, Shreyas. You got yourself a little catch on a fishing rod there. Can you confirm nor deny?
At the moment, yes.
Yes, okay, he's available. He's on the market, but you have to agree personal terms. There might be a couple of add-ons in there. And yeah, 20 million should seal the deal. So,
Loan
yeah.
with an obligation to buy.
Yeah, transfer to my PayPal as well, 20 million. Thank you very much. I'll take a percentage of that like an agent. 200 million to pay for all the transfers until now is ridiculous. We can't just pay 40 mil for any and every player unless we sell for at least 25. Kira saying, can we sign Amrabat still? We can. He's not even returned to Fiorentina as far as I'm aware. He's still at United, wearing United's training gear and stuff. So he's kind of just like, can we just stay? Can you just buy him here for the 12 million, please? I quite like it in Manchester. I'm quite settled. So he definitely wants to stay at United. It's just whether United are going to push that deal or not. I think they're putting it on the back burner maybe till end of August, I'd suggest. Jithin Joseph says, yes, we still have to pay some of the clubs the amortization of players we have signed. I don't know if it's 200 million. Dan Fenton, Real Red Stock, I've put loads of comments, read most of everyone's, but none of mine. That's because there's so many. You just mentioned yourself. I'm trying to get through as many as I can, so it's nothing personal, Dan. McMillan, the colour of Nick's wall reminds me of that stuff I use in my Frankie de Bong. Fair enough. Some random comments in here today. Falco was a right waste of money. There's been loads. Pogba, it was so much like the waste of players who just turn up overpaid wages. Since I've been living in Bangkok, I've been using disposable cannabis oil, vapes mostly. They're very handy and pack a punch, flavour amazing. Okay. Jonathan Ball, did you know that the Glazers post-Fergie have spent the most on 30 plus? 37.5% of their signings, with 6% of that being 35 plus. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is crazy. What a stat, Jonathan Ball. Absolute legend. Yeah, that also doesn't surprise you, does it? United.
No,
I
not
think
at all.
instantly, Igalo, Cavani, Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah, you can go through them all. Right, let's go back to the chat then. Scott McTominay, Shreyas. Sky Sports reported last night Fulham are not expected to bid again for Scott McTominay. They have moved their focus on to other targets. Happy for him to go, or was you desperate for him to go, sorry, or happy for him to stay, should I say?
Wanted him to leave, but only wanted him to leave at the right price. Never wanted to pay, be a situation where, we need to offload him and we end up accepting a 20 or 25 million bid for him. Didn't they just sign like Smith Rowe for around 30, 35 or something
35.
around that?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even have a season close to McTominay's last year. Didn't even have enough minutes in that, in the Prem last year. If you compare it to McTominay's, and McTominay was top scorer for United, scored some very crucial goals in our FA Cup run as well. And apart from it, had pretty much his best season ever in a United shirt last year. And he was being quoted around 30 million by West Ham the season prior. And he goes on to have this sort of a season, and his value goes down to 20-25. Doesn't really make sense. I think if United does accept a deal for him, it should be around that 35 or 40 million mark at the very least. I've seen other players go in, and academy players actually moving for larger fees. So if he ends up staying, I wouldn't really mind it. As a squad player, as someone to come off from the bench in the final moments of the game, and have those sort of players who can just end up getting you a goal in the final moments of the game, he still fits into that sort of role. He's never been that sort of a player who kicks up a fuss at the club. Even the manager isn't really as desperate to actually get rid of him, because Scott McTominay, one thing I've always said about him is he's a very hard worker. He gives his absolute all on the pitch. You can never doubt his commitment towards the club either. It's just that his quality doesn't match of a United starter. But apart from that, taking the quality out of the picture, he fits into the very description of a United player. So as a squad player, I wouldn't really mind actually keeping hold of Scott McTominay, because if you just have to sell him for like 20-25 million, you can just wait out on him. He's not a player who is nearing into his 30s right now. You can still wait out on him and just wait on a better deal to actually open up for McTominay.
Yeah, it's the thing with United. It's typical, isn't it? The only realistic one that we've got that we could sell, because we can't sell Casemiro. Wan-Bissaka, I don't know what's going on with that situation at the minute. Eriksen, you ain't going to sell. Sancho, Anthony, you can't sell. So McTominay's the only one where you're like, okay, academy prospect, pure profit. It would help us out significantly. We can go spend that money on a midfielder. And Fulham are like, nah, we don't want to offer more than 20. I mean, why the clubs absolutely penny pinch with us? Somebody offers, like, how much did we sell Fred for? Was it 8 million something?
Yeah.
8 to 10 million pounds? Offering, like, Galatasaray offering 13 million for McTominay. Like, these are fucking, like, Wan-Bissaka, 10 to 15 million. I know he's in the last year of his deal, but, like, 30 million, I find it mad. I put a tweet out yesterday, like a GIF. I don't know if you saw it on our Real Red Stock thing. Follow us on Twitter, by the way, if you don't. Of like basically just pushing pennies across, saying why do any team that come in to buy United, they just like they are awful offers, aren't they, for the players that they are? Like McTominay,
Lindelof was being quoted around 6 or 5 million for Lindelof.
Oh my god!
Awful. And they're not like terrible players. that you're getting 6 or 5 million offers for them. Like I would still say Lindelof at least deserves 12 to 15 million at least. Wan-Bissaka didn't really have a terrible season. He's easily a player who can go for 25 or 30 again.
Yeah, I'm losing patience with outgoings at this point. I know it's going to take a while as well. It's going to take a couple years and I'd say a couple windows to actually move. Because every year it's like, we're getting rid of the deadwood. I remember when Ten Hag first came in, I think it was, we was like, right, we've got rid of Cavani. I think Juan Mata's gone.
Yeah,
there was a few others as well who were like,
Cavani gone, Mata gone, Pogba gone,
yeah,
Lingard
it's
gone,
a big summer,
and
wasn't it? Where like 10
yeah,
players
a lot
went.
of players. Matic left as well.
Yeah, and we was like, okay. There's something to work with here. I think Lingard, did he go as well that season?
Yeah, Lingard. Every single one of them had their contracts expiring, so they
Yeah,
all left.
so you're like, oh, all the deadwood's gone now. Great. And then you get to the end of the next season, you're like, oh, well, we're struggling to shift Toney on. We're struggling, Maguire didn't end up getting sold. And, like, it's year in, year out. But I'm hoping, like, Ineos slowly but surely kind of weed out these issues. And eventually we'll have players, because by the time Xerxes runs out on his contract, he's going to be 26 or 27. Euro is going to be 23 by the end of his contract, or 24. So then you look at it, you're like, okay, Euro will probably be worth 150 million by then, if his trajectory goes, and that's the difference. That's the key difference. But
exactly.
This Mctominay signing, in my opinion, I thought it was going to have a domino effect on the midfield situation, and Sky Sports News also touched on this, Shreyas. Man United have held initial talks with Monaco over the signing of Youssouf Fofana, so he is one name that is on the list. For me, Fofana and Mainu, I could see that in a double pivot. I think that would work. If you want to stick with the single pivot and have two high, like we've been doing with Bruno Mainu, high pressing eights, I don't think he's good enough to isolate that position on his own. So that would be an initial concern with me. But what I wanted to ask you was, if they was going to go and spend, and I said this to Sam last night, if they was going to go and spend 40 million on Ugarte, if you're going to pivot from that and go spend 20 or 25 on Fofana, you have to go and get two, right?
Oh, of course you have to. Then you need to get someone like Amrabat or Rabiot as well into the team. If you're going in for Fofana, with Ugarte, I would still understand as to why they can't really go in for another player as well. But if you're going in for players like Fofana or the other player from Burnley that was being mentioned, then you need to go in for someone like Amrabat. Then you need to go in for someone like Rabiot or even someone else, because you can't be expected to actually go into at least this season where already the pressure is on Ineos. This is they're going to be their first season with Manchester United. They want to make a good first impression. They want to have a good start to the season. And if they actually want to do that, they need to make sure that at least 80% of the signings are done before that Fulham game. If we go into that Fulham game and you're ending up with a backline of Dallo, Luke Shaw, then you've got Maguire or Lindelof in there, it doesn't really fit into the picture. And then you've got Casemiro starting in midfield again in that six with Meno and Bruno. Same story as last season will once again be put into this season.
There's so many gaps and we can't play this. And Casemiro stretched and it's not Casemiro's fault. I'm like, oh, come on. Casemiro
then he gets a yellow in the first six minutes of the game.
2 foot someone, like reckless. There's a wild pass, gives it away, can't track back. We've seen this story before. What I'm concerned about, Treyas, is we're actually going to have a weaker midfield than we did in the FA Cup final for this Community Shield. In my opinion, because I thought Amrabat performed much better than Casemiro had been doing all season. So Community Shield, who else is it going to be? Because we're on, what is it, Wednesday today now? We play him on Saturday.
Yeah.
So there is, even if a signing came in today, he probably wouldn't start. Well, he definitely wouldn't start in the midfield. So it's gonna be Casemiro, Mainu, and Bruno,
I've
right?
actually written off the Community Shield game. I've just written it off
I think
already.
the majority of people have. You're not the only one.
Yeah, because right now I'm only looking at it from the season's perspective, and I just wish that we get another midfielder in before that game against Fulham, because I think that Fulham game is once again, it's going to bring reality into perspective for a lot of United fans again. Every single person expecting that Casemiro is going to be back and lively, and the Casemiro who actually came in this first season, it's not going to happen that way. We don't play that sort of a system anymore.
Yeah.
The same mistakes will happen again. We are going to get dominated in midfield. Players are going to get run over in midfield, and I just don't want to see the same drama all over again, where midfield cutbacks we are seeing again, players being left open on the back post, midfield being non-existent, and just wishing Menu can actually drive the ball forward, and we just make the most out of the chances that we get. And it just ends up being a basketball game if you
Yeah.
play Casemiro in that midfield. So
Oh. Do you remember
I,
the amount of games last season, Shreyas, that were back and forth? And it was like, it went a period, I think Brentford had 30 shots on goal, right?
Brentford, Luton,
Luton had 20.
Sheffield had 27 shots against us. 27 shots against us.
Brentford 30 plus shot, and he battered us. Absolutely battered us, and we almost nicked it with Mount scoring, didn't
Yeah,
we? And they scored
I
to
would rather play
equalise.
Mount and I would rather play Mount and Menu in that midfield
Yeah,
together
maybe.
rather
You
than
might be right.
Casemiro.
Yeah, I
At least Mount
completely
gives us
understand that.
legs. At least Mount gives us certain legs and energy in that midfield.
I think Euro's injury is much bigger than people realise as well, because I think the way United want to play, that like we've seen in pre-season, and again, I'm just very quickly to people in the chat, I'm recording a members video today how United can set up, what effect Euro and Xerxes are going to have on the team, you know, how we're going to switch things up tactically, everything in detail on that. I'm going to film that today. I'm going to drop it probably Friday, Saturday for members, so keep an eye out for that. But in that video as well, I'll give you a brief kind of glimpse into it. With Euro, we obviously want a high press, right? We want aggressive, high press, very proactive, directional, yeah?
Very
And
high,
yeah,
intensely high line.
very, very intense. When you bring Euro into that, one thing that he's really good at is defending spaces and recovery pace. Almost he relies on it too much at times. So having Euro in that
Like
back
the
line,
Varane region.
yeah, completely changes your
Yeah.
dynamic because you can trust him. If you're the Sandro, you're like, I can push up a little bit. If a long ball gets played in behind, he's big enough, physical, and he's quick enough. And you saw his recovery pace in pre-season. Then when you swap him with Maguire, he is quite literally the opposite of Euro. He's thicker. He's not as agile. He's so slow tracking back. I mean, we've seen him before. Him and Ericsson is a turtle race. So you struggle to play high line then, and then as a partner, if you was Lissandro now, Shreyas, you look next to you like, I can't push up. So the confidence
No.
goes out of the team because you know like Maguire, aerially, defensively at times, he's good, but pacing behind and little nimble players and things like that, he's fucking terrible.
You could, like, I can now actually imagine what would have went down last season. Like, imagine you Diogo Dallo and the manager is asking you to, push up, work around with Garnacho, just push the hell out of that right flank side, and then he, switches over to the left. He sees Lindelof playing at left back. Then he sees Maguire and Evans actually playing together in centre back, and he just thinks, how can I push up? How can I even actually move forward with the ball when I've got players who can even match the recovery pace that I have actually got? And the moment a ball over the top gets played, and the moment we've got runners in the midfield, we used to concede goals all over all over throughout the season.
Yeah, shocking. I hope we don't see the same thing. I'm very confused. I have no idea how the start of this season is going to go. I think I'm expecting a rough patch at the start, and I think maybe we'll grow into it and we'll have a better second half of the season. That's how I see it going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that Fulham game is going to be very tough. Like, genuinely very, very tough, that game.
Yeah. Random Guy's putting a super chat. Thank you very much, Random Guy. I always appreciate that. He says, with respect to Ineos, 20 mil is enough for Scott. I disagree with you. I love you, Random Guy, but I disagree. I don't think 20 mil is enough. I think you look at the market nowadays, what players are going for. I think is at least worth 30 mil. The guy
scored, going for 25 and 30 million.
Yeah,
the
guy scored
the
fucking what was it? 10 goals from midfield for his last season. Yeah. That's in addition to any team. He's in terms of like when you're talking about key personalities as well and what you want in a dressing room. Mctominay is that every coach loves Mctominay. Listen to how Ten Hag spoke about him in a press conference, and I know some people might say, "Oh, that's politics or whatever." It's Ten Hag loves him. Absolutely, you could just tell by the way he talks about him. He was like, great player, love to keep hold of it. It's not. I don't think that's a similar situation to where he was. When Ollie was speaking about Alexis Sanchez, and he was like, he's going to come back, he's going to do well. That was a political move from a coach.
Oh yeah,
I don't think it's the same with McTominay.
No, I think it was the game against Galatasaray or Bayern before there was a press conference, and Ten Hag had to go in with a player, and he went with him, and he was sitting over there, with that prime Ronaldo look that I'm going to win the game next. Tomorrow. And in the next two games, he was given the captain's armband for the Liverpool game as well. I still remember because Bruno was out for that game. He was suspended. He was given the captain's armband for that game. Even when Varane was present, even when he had other players present, he still went with, McTominay to actually lead the team. So he does trust the player. And we've seen it on multiple occasions last year that, he actually banned on McTominay to actually get him out of positions for quite some time last year before Casemiro came back, before Menu came back. He used to be a starter in that midfield with, I think it used to be Bruno, Eriksson, and McTominay on a lot of occasions last season.
Sorry, I thought he was expanding on the point there. I didn't realise you'd finished. Right, I've got to go to this comment here because someone's woke up on the wrong side of the bed and he thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on YouTube and I'm going to type in a nasty comment and I'm going to try and get a reaction. Well, you've got your reaction hooked. But let me tell you, they're saying, you know who doesn't play soccer at professional level? These two guys. The fact you've used the word soccer in the
never
first
played soccer
place.
in my life.
I'm not even going to acknowledge you. I'm not even going to acknowledge you. Like, yeah. Go somewhere else, you gimp. Right, random guy saying, I agree, McTominay's definitely worth more than 20 million, but look at our situation. We're not really in a good situation. 20 million would help loads. Would it help loads? Would it?
Maybe it does. Maybe it does because, McTominay is pure profit when it comes to FFP. So in that aspect, he does help. The only thing is, does he help? Like if it comes down at deadline day to a position where if we don't sell McTominay, we don't get anyone. And at least if we sell McTominay, you get someone like an Amrabat or someone like a Rabiot. I would still consider it. That's the only way I would still consider it. But if it has to be that, you keep McTominay or you sell McTominay, it's going to be the same picture. Then it's better to actually, just keep hold of him because at least he can chip in with goals, even if I wouldn't say that, he gets 15 or 20 goals this season. Not at all. But if he can still chip in with 5 to 6 goals this season as well, it does help us out.
Right now, as it stands, and again, I don't know if you'd agree, Shreyas, I think McTominay stays. I think Casemiro stays.
Casemiro is staying, definitely. No, he's not. He's not leaving.
I think Sancho stays. I think Anthony stays. And maybe Wan-Bissaka goes. That's how I see it.
Yeah. The only one I could see leaving are probably Lindelof and Wan-Bissaka. Apart from that, no one.
Lindelof stays as well. Honestly, that's how I feel at the minute. I feel because it just. I mean, me and Sam were going back and forth on a chat about this last night, and I was saying, like, Sam rightfully was saying, a lot of it is about money, and I know it is with footballers, and I agree with that. But Fred, in a similar situation, sold him for 10 million, just under 10 million, I think it was. He was on the exact same wages as Lindelof, and he went to Turkey. So if that path opens and Fenerbahce or Mourinho wants to bring him back, maybe that's the one way I could see him going. But apart from
that's the only way. But apart from that, like you mentioned, Casemiro is not going anywhere. He's going to be staying here this season.
Yeah.
McTominay, I don't see him moving either.
No.
Sancho, I just think when PSG or Juve get mentioned, it's just paper talk. I don't see him moving this year either. And you're just left with every single player that you wanted to actually sell. You're just left with them, barring Greenwood. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough to get players in. It's genuinely going to be tough, but maybe I think after a point, I think it might come to a situation where United have to just cut their losses on a player. Because you need to get some fresh faces into this midfield and even in the attacking line as well. You can't keep Anthony or Sancho and just put them on the bench because they're not going to be offering you as much, especially Anthony. He's not going to be offering you as much. If you play him, his value is going to depreciate even more. Yeah. So just get rid of him the moment.
Yeah, simple as that. Yeah. Now, the last story we are going to discuss, we're near the hour mark now, so we'll blitz through this. Manchester United, and this, again, I did a show about this. I told everyone, Ivan Toney, keep an eye on him if we do manage to sell players, and it's a big if, but if we do, I think that's a player that we could go in for. Laurie Whitwell's reported it. There's been multiple journalists. And then Sam Pilger, again today, who's a pretty decent journalist, has also said Manchester United remain interested in Ivan Toney. Brentford could be tempted to do business around £40 million. Yes or no, Shreyas? Do you go for this deal? And whichever way you go, why not?
I wouldn't go for Toney. We've already got 2 strikers in the club. We've just got Xerxes in. You've already got Højlund in. There's absolutely no need to go in for another striker unless you're playing a 2-striker formation, which Ten Hag will never play. Ten Hag is genuinely never going to play that system. He's going to stick with the way he's been playing, in pre-season. And I think in that attacking department with Xerxes coming in, you've got enough players to cover that area. Sancho isn't really going anywhere. You can play him in the false line. Bruno can do quite well in that false line as well. Xerxes can play quite, smoothly in that role. Højlund has actually been playing in that role quite decently, and I expect a bigger season from him, this year. So you don't really need to go in for a striker. If you've got 40 million, you better invest it in the midfield. You better invest it in a left back or a centre back. That's where the most of the money right now needs to go, because those are the two areas that actually, scare me the most. That defensive line, that midfield line. Attacking wise, I think we've got enough attackers. You've got uh, Rashford, you've got Garnacho, you've got Ahmad, you've got Hoyland, you've got Xerxes. Xerxes can play as left wing, right wing, striker, 10. He can play anywhere in that attacking line and do a decent job for you. And you still got players coming through from the academy as well in those winger spots. Then in the midfield, it's only Bruno and Minu. Apart from that, that number 6 position is up for grabs. So better invest it over there. And I really hope it doesn't happen. But if Lisandro gets injured, I don't want it to be a scenario where you've got Lindelof, Evans, and Maguire starting in the defensive line. You can't have that situation all over again. So I think it's better to invest it in the midfield and the defensive line.
I agree. The reason why I'm saying this, I think if we manage to get the players in that we want, so if we get the midfielder and we get the centre backs and we've got a bit of wiggle room left towards the very end of the window I'm talking about, and we've got an opportunity where we've got enough money to bring in Ivan Toney, I look at it like, look, he may want to be a starter. So Rasmus then drops to the bench. Are they going to do that with a £70 million player? Unlikely. But you look at Ivan Toney's age profile at the minute, I think he's 28 years old. Rasmus is 21 still. So you could have a progression plan there where he still gets enough minutes, because I think there's enough games in the season now, especially with the expansion of the European games, where there's enough to share about, if that makes sense. Like Julian Alvarez, I know Alvarez has gone to Atletico Madrid now, but Alvarez is a top quality player, and so is Haaland. Obviously, they're the same age, so it's slightly different. But with Toney, you give him a 3-4 year contract, 31, 32, he can move on elsewhere. Hoyland will be primed and ready then he'll only be 25, I think, by that point. And then he's really ready to step up and become the main striker. And then you bring in a young striker like that way. So that I could see working in a sense, but it is definitely a risk in terms of the harmony of the squad, because I think the type of character Toney is as well, he's quite sure of himself. He'll demand a starting position. But I think it's a good opportunity on the market.
To deal with as well.
Xerxes, like you said, though, can play across the front line. So I think, again, there's enough.
But once again, will he get enough minutes? Because Garnacho and Rashford on the left, you still got Ahmad and Anthony and Sancho on the right, I would say. So you've already got 5 wingers at the club.
But you look at City Shreyas, they've got Kovacic on the bench, they've got Mateus Nunes on the bench, Julian Alvarez was on the bench for him, Bernardo Silva at times. These are top quality players that we're getting the majority of teams around Europe. And it's depth as well. Don't forget, Ten Hag said survival of the fittest at the start of this,
But I think Toney just doesn't, I don't think that Toney is the sort of person who I would say, competition for places. He doesn't spark me as that sort of player.
I agree with that. I know what you mean. Yeah. That's my one concern with it, is
almost a bit of ego. In this window, if we end up going for someone like a Cunha, I would still say, competition for places can happen. He does fit into that sort. He's been doing it at Wolves his entire career. That, playing off with Neto, with Sarabia, with other players as well who have come in. But Toney is a person who I think if he'll come in, he'll want assurances that, he's going to be the focal point in that attacking line.
Yeah, I understand it. I get it. I think there's two sides to that, and I'm sure within the next kind of couple of weeks we'll be discussing Ivan Toney a lot more. I did say we was going to end on that, but we just had some breaking news from Romano, not necessarily in relation like United signing the player. But are you ready for this, Shreyas?
Okay.
Liverpool are exploring a move for Martin Zubimendi, a new midfielder, as their 60 million release clause into his contract. Talks will follow between clubs and on player side. So Zubimendi seems like an option that could go off the market if Liverpool manage to bring him in. A good player, in my opinion. I like him. I think he's solid. When he replaced Rodri in the Euros, he looked competent. He's been very, very good for Sociedad. Very smart. Very unselfish player. I like him, but it's a price-wise, same price as Ugarte. PSG want 50 million recouped for Ugarte. He's got a release clause of 60 million euros, so 50 million again there. So do you think that's just why United haven't gone for it maybe, and why they may not, with the price being what it is?
I think price could be the only thing that could stop United from going in for Zubimendi, because apart from it, he's a fantastic player. He's a proper technician on the ball. The way he's able to just take the ball off from the back four while absorbing pressure and then distribute the ball out from the deep as well. He's very, very good in that role. And once again, he's also a hybrid midfielder. He can do just as much of a decent job playing as a box to box midfielder. Is very good while actually covering ground as well. Had the I think was top five when it came to most ball recoveries last year in La Liga. Distance covered wise and energy wise as well, he's someone who can press for the entire 90 minutes. So I think if he like apart from Ogate, he's the only one who really excited me. That if United are going to be going in for a player, Zubimendi is genuinely a pure six, and he's got the legs to actually work in this sort of a system as well. So he can replace Casemiro, and with his passing range, with his vision of the game as well, he fits right into that midfield. If he moves to Liverpool, I think Liverpool's midfield becomes very, very well balanced. They've got Zubimendi, you've got McAllister, and then you've got Szoboszlai playing in the 10. That's a very good midfield, a very balanced midfield.
Gravenberch and Endo and Harvey Elliott as well, who can drop in there if needs
Yeah.
be. Yeah, they've got options, man, for sure. Oh, God. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I mean, in my head, I didn't really think we was going to sign him, but the fact that we linked with him, I think he's a good player. I would have liked to have seen that move maybe happen, but if Liverpool are going for him, I think it's good. I think someone mentioned it before in the chat. McMillan said United are going to get cheap DM this summer, fix the defence, and then go big on the midfield next summer. Wharton and Palmer. I don't know if I can do another season. Like if we bring in a quote unquote cheap DM.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's enough. I think it's just a plaster for this season. I'd worry. I would really worry about that sixth position.
I think if not this year, next year you'll have to go in for a young six who can actually lead that midfield line alongside Kobe Mino.
Yeah.
Because if you don't replace Casemiro now,
a good amount of money on him.
Yeah, and I don't remember anyone coming through from the academy right now who fits into that six. Collier is definitely a big talent, and I think he can be a very, very good player and probably might be the breakout star that we have from the academy this year. But I just think it's going to be very unfair for the player to actually being chucked into that midfield to replace someone like Casemiro into that midfield and play as the six week in and week out for us. It's a very big
either. Honestly,
I think he's still a couple of seasons away. I think there's a very bright player in him, but it's still a bit away. And right now, United need someone who can, absolutely absorb the pressure and actually have the agility to work as a lone six in that midfield. So we'll have to splash the cash. If not this year, then next year you'll have to.
And it's again, guys, we've come full circle. It's because we are struggling to sell players. If we had already sold Casemiro, Mctominay, and Sancho, let's say, for example, we would have brought in another 2-3 players potentially.
Yeah, Amrabat would be in, maybe Rabiot would be in, maybe Ugarte would be a deal done by now. De Ligt would have been done by now. We've just not. The first couple of weeks of the transfer window were quite swift for us. Euro was quite swift. Xerxes was quite swift. The way we moved off from Jared Branthwaite, that was quite quick as well. But after that, two signings, I think it's been a bit icy. It's been cold. So all I want is just make sure that you get De Ligt or any other centre back or full back in before that game against Fulham.
Yeah, I'm a bit greedy. I want both. I know you do as well. I want a very good six and I want a very good centre back in. I think if you don't
and not
do Sander
Berge.
Not Sander Berge, definitely not Sander Berge. If you want to bring him as an addition alongside
as
fine, do that.
Yeah.
Not as your main fucking priority, I wouldn't do it. So, yeah, I put a poll up at the start and we'll finish on this. I put, do you see us selling any more big players this summer? Just a question to the chat. 60% said no and 40% said yes. So you can feel the pessimistic vibe slowly creeping into United fan base, and I don't blame people for it at all. I'm the exact same way. I know other people feel a bit more patient about it, and they're like, nope, stay calm, we'll bring in the players, but we have 3 weeks pretty much left of the transfer window. Let that sink in, and we play City on Saturday. We kick the season off next Friday against Fulham, and we've arguably got a worse squad. Like Xerxes is going to take time to grow into the team. Euro's out until November, and we've only got players just coming back, and some of them haven't even been in pre-season and played with the team. So make of that what you will.
Maguire or Lindelof might be starting at that Manchester United.
Or Evans, fucking Johnny Evans.
Or Evans. Yeah. And we are in 2024.
Oh my God. Anyway, I hate to leave it on a -5, but that's the way it's going with United at the moment. I'd like to thank every single one of you for joining in, the comments and getting involved. I love your opinions. I love having a chat with you guys about football. Like I said, the season's kicking off very, very soon, so excited to bring back watch-alongs and reviews and previews and start talking about football and how we played and tactics and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, if you enjoy this content, whether you're watching live or later on, please do hit that subscribe button, smash a like on the video for us. Just takes 2 seconds to let us know you enjoyed the show. And we'll be back at 7 o'clock. Thank you to Shreyas as well. It's been a fun show, mate.
Yeah, it's definitely been a fun show. Just hope that, we can hear something positive by the end of this week itself.
Yeah, you're not the only one. I'm praying for that. Like everyone else, I'm sure. Just notifications I'm checking all the time, like Romano.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, nothing yet. Like,
the only thing that keeps on getting repeated is United have talked to the camps of both Mazraoui and ligt every single day.
Like Romano, like give us an actual update, man. Like, yep, they still appreciate the player. Big moment. Just sign a fucking player. Bring in de Ligt and Mazraoui, and we can have a discussion about the rest of them. Anyway. Thank you very much, guys. Take it easy. We'll see you at 7 o'clock.